Hey everybody, it's Lindsay and I am back this week with the third week of Lunchbox Notes. So let's get started. Now I'm going to be making 3 cards today. They're all the same size, but I am starting out with pieces of cardstock, white plain cardstock, that measure 2.5 inches by 5 inches. And then I just score those and fold those right in the middle, and that creates a 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch square little mini card ready to go. Now on all of the cards, I will be using the same stamp set. This is an old one from the Alleyway Stamps. Unfortunately, they have closed their shop, but I have lots of other options listed over on my blog if you're interested and you want to check that out. Now for this first card, I'm using Memento Tuxedo Black ink for all of my stamping, and I just stamped the little worm right in the center of the card, and that'll do it for that card for right now. I'll come back to it a little bit later. It was a little simple for me, so I added just a little bit more to it. Now for the second card, I have taped off just where that fold starts so it covers the back of the note card. I'm going to slide a piece of paper under this just to catch all of my little leftover stamping. I'm using the crayon stamp from the stamp set. I've turned it at an angle, and then I'm just going to repeatedly stamp this kind of in a little bit of a pattern on this note card, and it's going to create just a nice effect of almost a pattern paper, but you're making it yourself. And that piece of painter's tape up there is just going to catch all of my stamping and keep the back of my note card nice and clean and free of any stamping. So I'll just continue to stamp this. I have just a few more left to go. You can see this goes relatively quickly. It doesn't take a lot to fill up these tiny note cards. But once I have that done, I can remove the masking tape, and it is perfectly clean on the back side, ready to go. Now for my third card, I've just taken the calculator from the stamp set, and it says hello on the top of it upside down. I don't know if you did that as a kid. We did. It's like a little math problem and you end up with the word hello. So I just turn the calculator at a little bit of an angle and stamp that right down in the center of the card. Now I'm coming back to this worm, and I'm just going to stamp that little bitty apple right on the end of his tail to make it look as if he's holding it. And then right underneath him, I'm not doing any masking, I'm just looking straight over it and eyeballing it. I'm going to stamp this little pile of books. It ends up just being like a half of a book, but it gives him something to sit on and kind of grounds him a little bit. Now for my coloring, I'm going to be using Sharpie markers and Bic markers. I wanted to do some coloring that anybody could do. Whether you're a crafty person or not, you can get Sharpies or Bics at your local grocery store. You can get them at a Target, a Walmart, wherever you go pretty much, they're going to have these markers, and they're so easy to use to do some coloring with. So I have this huge bag of them. I don't know how I've accumulated all of them. They just kind of multiply, it seems like. But I'm starting out, and I'm just using, there's some wide tips in there and there's some smaller tips in there. The trick to making these look good, especially these really fine tip like I'm using here, is to color in little circular motions. You can see I'm doing this on the calculator, and go over it a few times, and that just really smooths out the color. You don't get any streaking, and you get a nice, rich, smooth color, and it really looks like you've spent a lot of time on it and you've used some really expensive markers, but really you're just using your regular Sharpie or Bics. Now if you really want to get fancy with these markers, you can do some blending with them. They are alcohol-based markers. They do blend, and you can get a nice blend with some of these, but I'm keeping it really simple here. I'm just using one color, and I'm not doing any blending. I wanted to keep it nice and simple, so whether you're non-crafty, whether you're just a mom looking for some quick little lunchbox notes to throw in your kids' lunch, this will work for you. Alright, so for that worm, I just used like a lime green color, colored in the apple red, added a little bit of green on that little leaf there, colored in the top of the book blue, and then I took a very fine tip and just did a little bit of green right where it would kind of end with his face. Because those are glasses, they're clear, they're going to lighten the color, and it's not going to be completely green all the way through. For the calculator, I used a teal color, blue, and then I didn't have a light enough gray, so what I ended up doing, I used this really cool toned purple, and it ended up looking gray against the blue. So kind of experiment with your colors, test them out. You know, it's just a lunchbox note. It's not the end of the world if they don't end up looking perfect. So for my crayons, I wanted to keep it kind of like a real crayon, so I just grabbed a few, looked at the packaging, and then I was going to do 2 different colors, one for the wrapper, one for the actual crayon. And then I was like, you know what, that's a little bit overkill, so I just cut it down to 1 color marker for each crayon. So you can see here, I am starting out with this gray, and I'm just going to go ahead and color in all the little ovals that are in the crayons, and also there's 2 little lines on the top and bottom, and those will be colored in gray as well. Now this gray is one of the ones that is a fine tip marker, and these are great for getting in your little areas, but when it comes to larger areas and coloring with them, you really want to use that circular motion and just go back over it a few times until you feel like the color is smooth enough, and that's all you need to do with these markers. So here you can see for the green, I started out using 2 colors. They ended up really matching each other, so it wasn't a big deal to even use 2. Now here's where I started to not like this idea. I used 2 different colors of purple, and when I tested them out together, they looked okay. However, I put them on the paper and I didn't like it. So instead of going back over and redoing this whole panel, I went ahead and I moved on first to my pink, because if you do put too much color on these, it's gonna bleed, just like your alcohol markers, your Copics, your Blick markers, it's gonna bleed. So what I did, I let this dry for a minute, and then I came back with my darkest color, and I just went over the lighter colors with it, and that's just gonna blend out those 2 colors. Once it dries, it will look pretty much identical. It's just gonna be a little off in color, but not noticeable unless you know you've messed up. So I'm moving on, and I'm going to go ahead and color in the orange crayon. And again, these are some really fun colors that I found. These aren't your normal, you know, black, green, red Sharpies. These are kind of a special fun pack of colors, but you can again find these anywhere. So now I'm going to go ahead and move on to this blue, and then I'm coming back in and I am just repeating all my colors again. So I'm going to come back in and I'm just repeating colors that I've already used before, just to give it more of a cohesive look. So I went ahead and I repeated that green color, and then I'm bringing back in the darker purple that I finished off that top crayon with, and I will color in this little crayon here. And then for my last one, since I used such a little bit of blue on that crayon I colored blue before, I'm going to go ahead and throw that in as well. And that will finish off the cards except for a sentiment inside. Now you can skip this if you want and just write your own little message. I do both. So what I end up doing is I just take a sentiment, and in this set it has a sentiment that reads, "You're out of this world." I'm just going to mount that onto an acrylic block, and using the Memento Tuxedo Black ink, I'm just going to stamp that at the top of each note card. Now you can tell once I've opened these that it does bleed through, but like I've said in previous videos, this doesn't bother me because that's where I tape a little treat on the inside. And in the long run, these cards, when they're in the lunchbox, they're gonna get messy, they're gonna get wet. These are more of a throwaway card, so it's really not a big deal to me. If it is to you, you can put another piece of cardstock on top to cover that, or you can do a double layer on the outside of the card, and that will keep the bleed through from happening. So I'll just finish stamping this last little sentiment right at the top, and that leaves me enough room right underneath to write a little message and sign my name. And that will finish off the card for today. I hope you guys enjoyed these little lunchbox notes, and I hope I've inspired you to make some as well. As always, I will leave you guys with just this close-up and a few pictures. for more information and the supply list, you can head to my blog, craftingwhilekaffeinated.wordpress.com. The link is in the description box below, as well as that eye in the top right hand corner. That will get you there too. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and happy crafting!